Hello, everyone. I want to go ahead and talk about all the stuff that's been shown with Cold War. It's a lot to unpack, so I may get a little distracted. Okay, with Cold War announced, it also is going to affect Warzone in some capacity or another. There's a couple reasons for me thinking this. First, being that the devs did say that they would continue to maintain and update Warzone. In addition to what the devs said, there's plenty of clues to indicate that Cold War will use Warzone as its Warzone. Well, at least the current Warzone. The clues that I can see of is the trailer, where they try to blow up a plane. It looks similar to one of the planes that's destroyed, or I guess you can say sitting around in Warzone right now. There's that, and then there's also the reveal event. The reveal event had you go to Boneyard, which is where that kind of stuff was occurring by the looks of it. So there's two good clues right there. Assuming that Warzone does continue for however long it is, um, then I would have some concerns with that. This goes beyond the gun balance. This also goes to the cheaters that have been in the game, um, the fact the game's not optimized in terms of not only the hardware but also the hard drive size and things like that. So if they are going to continue with Warzone, well into the future, then I would say keep some assets from the Warzone that we have now, but scrap it. Create a brand new Warzone that has better anti cheats, new gun mentalities, and all the other stuff that comes with doing something new. I think also that Warzone should be a standalone. It shouldn't have tie-ins to multiplayer. Um, if people need to level a gun, I think that you shouldn't be forced to play um, in a mode that you don't want. There should be some way to level the guns in a way that's fun for everyone in Warzone. So that's kind of my take on it. Now, obviously, everybody has their own opinion on what should be done, but that's just my take. Um, I'll go into details about the gun stuff, seeing as talking about guns is what I'm good for and what my channel has mostly been about in terms of Call of Duty content. A while back, I did talk about like what I think should have been done for the guns before they even started this Call of Duty. To give you a recap on that, I was saying that this does not feel like a true modern Call of Duty to me. This feels like a mixed mash of stuff that doesn't exactly fit together well. In particular, things like the 725, the AK-47, and all that. A lot of that stuff is not even really in use anymore, depending on how modern you're talking. To me, modern means um, late 90s and into the 2000s. That to me is modern. That's when a lot of the militaries have not only shifted their uh, mindset in terms of what a gun should be used for, but also they've shifted in which guns they've used since the 80s. In that, I was saying that perhaps the easiest way to balance Call of Duty and also give it a true modern feel is to dump some of these categories. As I pointed out, there are paramilitary or military branches in the world that are in the process of dumping submachine guns. And the reason they are dumping submachine guns is because it's not a versatile weapon. It works really well in one particular scenario, which is close quarters combat. But even then, that's limited. If the enemy has body armor, so if you're a military unit up against another military unit, 9mm is very easy to stop with body armor. Very easy. In that scenario, you're going to want something that can penetrate the armor. That's why a lot of these paramilitary and military units across the world are now looking to carbines or ARs. It's not just for close quarters combat, but it's for that flexibility. It's to allow them to use different ammunition types in different scenarios. So, jacketed hollow point, if they're up against unarmored enemies, barricade rounds if they're trying to hit an enemy behind walls, or even armor piercing rounds if they are up against body armor. So yes, the world is changing, and submachine guns, they're making their exit. How long it will take, who knows, but it is happening right now. Based on knowing that, that is where I think Call of Duty should go. I think that they should theorize, or at least make a fantasy of what the world will look like in the next 6 years. That to me would be modern. So in that regard, let's look at what I have up here to kind of show you where I'm going with this. I understand that people are hesitant or refuse to move away from the modding system or attachment system, whatever you want to call it. This system has been a problem. I think that if this attachment system was done better, maybe it wouldn't be a problem, but as it stands, I think it's where things like the M4 got out of control. It's because the attachments allowed the M4 to go from an M4 to an M16, which should not happen. So in that regard, I think that the best way to balance this is dump the submachine gun category, replace it with the carbine category, and then have an AR category. The carbine category would include any carbine that has 14.5-inch barrel or less. That's what the M4 is. You can even see that over here. Barrel length 14.5-inch right there. The M4 does have a CQB package, which does bring its barrel length down below that, and I believe that's listed here. Let's go and just check real quickly. Yeah, 10.3 inch. So it can get down all the way down to there. In other countries outside the United States, they have even shorter than that. I have seen military M4s go down as far as 8 inches. So it's entirely possible for the M4 to change to a shorter barrel, but not longer. So this, I think, would fit the carbine category. And then something like this would fit the AR category, the thing that I've had up on my screen for a while. This is the FB MSBS Grot. I'll get to why I've got this pulled up in a minute, but first, let me go and try to get this point across. The Grot has 10, 16, and 20-inch barrel lengths, but within those barrel lengths, it has different barrels. You'll notice that there is a squad automatic weapon, which uses a heavy, thick profile. So you can make two 16-inch barrels, one that's an AR barrel and one that's a squad automatic thing, and the difference between them could be recoil control and ADS. The 20-inch barrel, I mean, that could be just its own thing. So that to me is where attachments should go. It should have a defined line as to where it goes, and then it should have the gameplay in mind. So in the Grot's case, it would be an extremely long-range weapon for Warzone. That's how it should work. And then the opposite side of this, the carbine, this should be for more closer to medium-range combat, essentially replacing what the SMGs are doing. So yeah, short range, and then this is more longer range. That's how things should go. One last thing I want to kind of bring up on this topic is I think that another thing too that they could do outside of attachments to make this unique is to I guess give certain benefits to guns that you know, are kind of unique. So Steyr AUG, The reason I've got this pulled up is not only because it's more of a well-known weapon, but because it's very unique. It is a bullpup, and bullpups are actually probably where militaries across the world are going to go in the future. There's a good reason for that. Bullpups have their weight, well, usually bullpups have their weight in the back, which makes it easier to fire these one-handed, if you absolutely have to. So if you're trying to grab a fellow soldier off the battlefield, you'll have a much easier time using one arm, one hand to shoot your weapon for covering fire while you're pulling that soldier out. Another reason that this is unique is not just because it's a bullpup, but because this essentially set the record in durability at the very start. You can read about it if you want to, but the 80s Australian tests, the Army tests, the 80s Army tests from Australia showed that the Steyr AUG could fire in conditions that the M4, M16 could not. If I remember right, the test included 4 weapons. They were the FN FAL, an AK, Steyr AUG, and then the M16. Out of these 4 rifles, the Steyr AUG continued to fire in adverse conditions. That's because, well, at least partly because of its gas valve switch. The Steyr AUG, like the Negev from Iwi, has the ability to change its gas system. So it's partly why I can do that. But yeah, the Steyr AUG continued to fire in rain, severe sand, and other conditions well past what the other rifles were doing. The Steyr AUG continues to do that. So, there's a lot of unique things with the AUG, and I feel they did a big disservice with the way they handled it in this game. I think it should have been stuck as an AR. I don't think it should have had an ammo conversion for 9mm. 300 Blackout maybe, but it should have been 5.56 base. So yeah, knowing all that, I would say in terms of handling a unique gun, I would say in a case like this, maybe give it better mobility and better recoil control, because that's essentially what it does. Maybe better ADS as well. Because bullpups are built uniquely, they can fit a longer barrel before they become longer or as long as an actual rifle. So, okay, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going with this. But while we're on the topic of uniqueness, I do want to bring up the thing I was mentioning with the Grot earlier. The reason I have this pulled up is because I think the Grot is going to become one of the few country-grown or country-made weapons that will enter mass military service, not just in Poland but other areas as well. This is a truly unique rifle, and it's been tested by numerous countries already. It's proven to hold its weight, even when tested alongside more famous rifles like the HK416. So while this is not truly realistic towards modern warfare right now, due to countries not really using it right now, it does have the potential to do it. So this would be more fitting than, say, something like the Knight's Armament LAMG, which I was talking about earlier prior to the Finn's release. But anyways, that's enough of interesting gun facts. Let's go ahead and talk about the other categories they should add to do this. So in total, they should have pistols, carbines, ARs, light support weapons, squad automatic weapons, whatever you want to call it, then LMGs, marksman rifles, and then snipers. That's the way the category should go, in my opinion. It will be 10 times easier to balance that way because the carbines would have either greater or similar RPM to the ARs. And at that point, it just becomes a matter of stats that would win it. And it would also make sure that you have planned out the ranges, I guess you can say. SMGs just don't have the range for Warzone. like um, the current ARs do, and that makes it very hard to balance, because then if you put too much range on them, then they'll outclass the ARs. So the easier way to handle this is just dump it and try to do something similar to what these are doing in terms of their stats. You can keep the attachment system, as I pointed out with the Grot and some of the others, but make sure that you have a defined line, as I was saying. Another thing too that I would do in addition to that is I would try to bring in rifles that aren't really in use by games, such as the Beretta ARX 160, for example. It might be a bit harder to put in because it doesn't have as many attachment options, but it goes to show that it's not a really used rifle. I'm sure there's other examples, but it's the only one I can think of when that comes to mind right now. But yeah, so short version, just let's redo Warzone, start from scratch, and do it better. That's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.